The battlefield was quiet in the wrong way. Smoke drifted slowly across broken metal and burned ground, carried by a weak wind that no longer mattered. Wrecked ships lay half-buried in the soil, their lights dead, their weapons silent. The Alliance fleet had already retreated. Their jump signatures had faded hours ago, leaving behind nothing but debris and one living human. Corin Hale moved through the ruins with slow, careful steps. His armor was cracked along the chest and shoulder, scorched black in several places. One arm hung stiff at his side. The servos damaged, responding late to every command. Warning lights blinked inside his helmet, but he ignored them. He had learned long ago that fear and pain wasted energy. He was alone. He had known that would happen the moment the retreat order came. The Alliance commanders had said it was a tactical withdrawal. They had said humanity would regroup, but Corin had seen the real data before the channel cut. Human units had been placed on the outer edge of the formation, used as shields to buy time. When the enemy counterattack came, the non-human fleets pulled back first. No one had called for the humans. Corin stopped near a shattered barricade and checked his rifle. Power was low. Ammunition was almost gone. He had enough for maybe one more serious fight. He looked across the open ground ahead of him, where enemy patrol drones moved in slow patterns. Scanning for survivors, he could still run. He could hide and wait, maybe steal a ship if luck favored him. But running would mean leaving the fallen behind. It would mean admitting that humanity was meant to be discarded. Corin stepped out from cover and fired. The rifle kicked against his shoulder as a drone exploded mid-air. The sound echoed across the field, sharp and defiant. More drones turned toward him immediately. Red targeting beams cut through the smoke. Corin moved before they could lock on. He rolled behind a fallen transport, fired again, and destroyed a second drone. Heat warnings flared in his visor. He ignored them too. Above the planet, far beyond the smoke and fire, the Empress watched. Her throne chamber was silent except for the soft hum of holographic projectors. Before her floated a detailed image of the battlefield, reconstructed from thousands of sensors. Every movement was tracked. Every life was measured. The Empress of the Virelian Empire was ancient by human standards, though she appeared calm and unhurried. Her eyes, bright and sharp, followed the small figure moving among the wreckage. One life signal remains, a commander said from behind her. Human. Insignificant. The Empress did not answer at once. She raised one long finger, and the projection zoomed in. She watched the human soldier fight with broken equipment against machines designed to hunt entire squads. He is still engaging? She asked. Yes, Your Radiance. He has no support. No extraction path. Then why does he fight? The commander hesitated. Possibly confusion, or a delayed retreat response. The Empress watched as the human dragged himself behind cover, reloaded with shaking hands, and fired again. Another drone fell. The human did not cheer or pause. He simply moved, as if this was the only thing he knew how to do. Open historical data, she said. Human combat behavior. Streams of information appeared. Records of past battles. Humans standing their ground when logic suggested withdrawal. Humans holding lines long after others broke. Humans choosing to fight when survival chances were nearly zero. The Empress felt something unfamiliar. Not admiration. Not yet. Curiosity. On the ground, Corin's luck began to run out. A heavy drone emerged from the smoke, armored and slow, its main cannon charging. Corin fired twice. The shots barely scratched it. He swore under his breath and ran, boots slipping on ash and broken stone. The cannon fired. The blast threw Corin forward, slamming him into the ground. His helmet cracked along the edge. Pain flared white and sharp, but he forced himself to roll aside as debris rained down where he had been. He pushed himself up, breathing hard. His rifle was gone, thrown from his grip. He drew his sidearm, knowing it would not be enough. The heavy drone advanced, unstoppable. Corin planted his feet. He thought of Earth, of blue skies and open oceans, of cities that still stood because people like him went where they were told and held the line. He thought of the Alliance speeches, The promises of unity that had faded the moment things went wrong. He raised his sidearm and fired anyway. Above, the Empress leaned forward slightly. "Pause all orbital strikes," she said. The commander turned, surprised. "Your Radiance, the cleansing protocol, is delayed." The heavy drone's cannon locked onto Corrin. Energy built within it, enough to erase him completely. Then, the drone stopped. Its systems froze mid-charge. A second later, it collapsed, crushed by a precise orbital pulse that struck only it and nothing else. Corrin stared in disbelief as the machine fell apart in front of him. His visor struggled to focus. For a moment, he wondered if he was already dead. More shapes descended from the sky. But these were not drones. They were ships. Sleek. Powerful. Marked with symbols he recognized from every battlefield briefing. Imperial ships. Corrin forced himself to stand straight, even as his legs shook. He aimed his empty sidearm at the nearest landing craft. If this was the end, he would meet it on his feet. The ramp lowered. Armored figures emerged. Weapons ready but not firing. They surrounded him in a wide circle. Cautious but controlled, a voice echoed from above, calm and clear, translated directly into his helmet. "Human soldier. You are wounded." Corrin laughed weakly. "You could say that. You continued fighting after abandonment," the voice said. "Explain." Corrin swallowed. His mouth was dry. Someone had to. There was a pause. He could feel eyes on him, studying, judging. Above, in her chamber, the Empress watched his vitals spike and settle. She saw the damage to his armor, the blood loss, the exhaustion. He was beyond what most species could endure. "Take him alive," she said quietly. "Do not harm him." The commander looked at her in shock. "Your Radiance? He is an enemy combatant." "He is a question," she replied. "And I intend to hear the answer." On the battlefield, the Imperial soldiers moved in. One of them reached out carefully and took the sidearm from Corrin's hand. Corrin did not resist. The strength had finally left him. As they lifted him onto a medical platform, his vision darkened at the edges. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the ruined field behind him. He had not won. He had not been saved by allies, but he had not fallen alone. And somewhere beyond the stars, an Empress had seen him fight and had chosen, for reasons she did not yet fully understand, not to let him die. Corrin woke to silence that felt too clean to be real. There was no smoke, no shaking ground, no warning alarm screaming inside his helmet. Instead, there was a steady hum beneath him, and a soft white light above. For a moment, he thought he had finally died and this was some strange human idea of peace. Then he tried to move, and pain answered. He gasped. But even that hurt less than he expected. His body felt heavy, wrapped in something warm and firm. Tubes were attached to his arms and chest, feeding him fluids and medicine. His armor was gone. In its place was a simple medical suit that fit closely but did not restrict his breathing. Corrin turned his head slowly. The room was wide and smooth, built with curved walls and no sharp corners. Symbols glowed faintly along the edges, shifting colors in slow patterns. Machines hovered nearby, moving with quiet purpose. None of it looked human. "I'm alive," Corrin whispered. The words sounded small in the open space. A soft tone echoed through the room. One of the machines drifted closer, scanning him with gentle light. A calm voice followed, translated clearly into English. "Remain still. Your injuries are severe but stabilizing." Corrin closed his eyes for a second. "Figures," he muttered. "Who are you?" "I am a medical unit of the Varelian Empire." That made him open his eyes again. "The Empire," he said slowly. "So I really was captured." "Rescued," the voice corrected. "Your life signs were failing." Corrin gave a weak smile. Funny way to rescue someone. The machine did not respond to that. It finished its scan and moved away. Time passed, though Corrin could not tell how much. Sleep came and went in shallow waves. Each time he woke, the pain was less. His thoughts grew clearer. When he was strong enough to sit up, the room changed. The lights dimmed slightly, and a section of the far wall became transparent. Beyond it stood figures taller than any human, their forms elegant and controlled. Their armor was ceremonial, not battle-worn. At their center stood one figure who did not wear armor at all. The Empress stepped forward. She was taller than Corin by a full head, her posture straight and balanced. Her skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the light like polished stone. Her eyes were deep and unreadable, ancient and alert at the same time. Corin felt suddenly very small. "You are awake," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight, not loud, certain. Corin struggled to stand, then stopped when the medical field tightened gently around him. "Easy," he said, forcing a breath. "I'm not going anywhere." "That would be wise," the Empress replied. "You are still healing." Corin studied her openly. "So you're the one who stopped the strike?" "Yes." "Why?" The question came out before he could stop it. The Empress did not seem offended. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering how to answer. "Because you did not retreat," she said. "Because you fought alone when logic said you should not." Corin let out a quiet laugh. "Logic and humans don't always get along." Corin let out a quiet laugh. She watched him carefully. "That much is evident." Silence followed. Not uncomfortable, but heavy. "You were abandoned." The Empress continued. "Our records show your allies withdrew, while your forces remained engaged." Corin's jaw tightened. They had better ships, better shields. They decided saving themselves mattered more. "And you?" she asked. "Why did you stay?" Corin looked down at his hands. They were steady now, cleaner than they had been in weeks. "Someone had to hold the line," he said simply. "If everyone runs, then everything behind you burns." The Empress's eyes narrowed slightly. "Even when survival is unlikely?" "Especially then." Another pause. The Empress turned slightly, and the wall behind her filled with images. Battles, retreats, maps marked with symbols Corin recognized all too well. Human units always on the edge, always taking the first hits. "You are not the first human to do this," she said. "But you are the first I have personally witnessed." Corin shrugged weakly. "Guess I'm lucky." "That depends on perspective." She stepped closer to the barrier separating them. "Your species is labeled reckless by most of the galaxy." "That sounds about right." "Expendable," she continued. Corin did not answer that one. The Empress watched his reaction closely. "Do you believe that is true?" Corin met her gaze. "No. But belief doesn't stop people from using you that way." The Empress was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her tone had changed. It was quieter. "Among my people, surrender is considered the highest form of survival," she said. "To live is to serve the Empire later." Corin nodded. "Makes sense. You chose death over surrender." "I chose duty," he replied. Death was just part of the deal. That answer lingered between them. Outside the chamber, alarms began to sound low and controlled, not urgent but serious. One of the armored figures stepped forward and spoke quickly in the Empress's native language. Corin did not understand the words, but he understood the tension. The Empress listened, then dismissed the guard with a gesture. "The coalition fleets are mobilizing," she said. Corin's eyes hardened. "They're coming for you." "Yes," she agreed. "They believe us weakened by recent engagements, and they don't know you saved a human," Corin said. "They do not." Another silence. This one was sharp. "What happens to me?" Corin asked. The Empress turned back to him. "That depends on what you represent." "I'm just a soldier," he said. "No rank worth mentioning." "You are a symbol," she replied. "Whether you wish to be or not." Corin shook his head slowly. "Humans don't do well as symbols. We get broken." "And yet," the Empress said, "you continue." She raised one hand, and the barrier faded away. The medical field loosened, allowing Corin to stand fully. His legs shook, but he remained upright. "You may leave this chamber," she said. "You will not be restrained." Corin stared at her. "You're letting me walk free on your flagship?" "I am allowing you to choose," she answered. He took a careful step forward. No one stopped him. "Why trust me?" he asked. The Empress met his eyes without hesitation. "Because if you intended harm, you would have attempted it already." Corin exhaled slowly. "Fair enough." They walked together through the corridor, Imperial guards keeping respectful distance. Corin noticed how they watched him not with hatred, but curiosity. "You saved me," Corin said as they walked. "That's not nothing." "No." The Empress agreed. "It is not." They stopped before a wide viewing window. Beyond it, stars drifted past as the ship moved through space. "Tell me, Corin Hale," she said, speaking his name for the first time. "If your people were given strength instead of abandonment, what would they do with it?" Corin looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth, of soldiers like him still fighting, and still trusting promises that broke too easily. "We'd remember who stood with us," he said. "And we wouldn't forget who didn't." 8. The Empress nodded slowly. That answer, more than any weapon or fleet, convinced her that sparing one human had already begun to change the course of a war. The stars outside the viewing window moved like slow rivers of light. Corin stood quietly, his hands resting at his sides, his body still weak but no longer shaking. The ship felt different from any human vessel he had known. It was quiet, balanced, as if every part of it trusted every other part to do its job. The Empress watched him from a short distance away. She did not rush him. She had learned that humans often needed time to place their thoughts into order after survival. "You are no longer in danger," she said at last. "Medical scans confirm your recovery is progressing faster than expected." Corin gave a small smile. "Humans heal best when they don't have a choice." "That seems to be a pattern," she replied. They began walking again, moving deeper into the ship. Corin noticed that the corridors widened ahead, opening into a massive chamber filled with light and movement. This was not a war room, but something close to it. Information flowed through the air in clear shapes and colors. Officers of the Empire worked calmly, adjusting projections and exchanging quiet reports. When Corin entered, many of them paused. Some stared openly. Others tried to hide their interest but failed. A few looked uneasy. "He is smaller than expected," one officer whispered. "And still standing," another replied. The Empress raised one hand, and the room returned to its normal rhythm. "This is my command chamber," she said to Corin. "You will observe." "I don't have clearance," Corin said. "I'm not part of your empire." "You are part of the situation," she answered. "That is enough." She gestured toward a wide projection forming in the center of the room. Corin recognized star maps immediately. Coalition space, Imperial borders, human-controlled systems, marked thin and scattered. The imbalance was clear. "The Coalition believes you are broken," the Empress said. "They believe your people lack unity, and therefore strength." Corin crossed his arms slowly. "They're not completely wrong. Humans argue. A lot. And yet," she said, "you fight when others withdraw." Corin did not deny it. A new symbol appeared on the map, a large fleet, moving fast. "They're coming sooner than expected," Corin said. "Yes," the Empress replied. "They believe we are divided." Corin looked at her. "Are you?" She met his gaze. "We were." She turned toward her officers. "Leave us." There was a moment of hesitation, then the officers obeyed. The room emptied, until only Corin and the Empress remained. "You could kill me," Corin said quietly, "or use me as leverage." "Yes, but you won't," he added. "No," she agreed. Corin took a breath. "Then why show me this?" "Because I want your perspective," she said. "Not as a strategist. As a human." Corin studied the map again. "You don't fight the Coalition head-on," he said after a moment. "They're too comfortable with their numbers. You let them overextend, make them chase what they think is a weakness." The Empress watched closely. "Continue. You protect your core systems," Corin said. "But you leave a path open. Something they can't resist." "A trap," she said. "More like an invitation," Corin replied. "Humans are good at that too." The Empress considered this. You speak as if you expect us to fight together. Corin looked at her carefully. You already made that choice when you saved me. She did not argue. Instead, she moved closer and lowered her voice. If I extend protection to your species, it will alter the balance of power. Many will oppose it. Even within my own empire, Corin nodded. People don't like change. And humans bring change, she said. That we do. Silence settled between them again. But this time it was not heavy. It was thoughtful. Why did your allies abandon you? The Empress asked. Corin's jaw tightened. Because we were useful until we were inconvenient. That is not an answer, she said. That is a symptom, Corin sighed. Because humans don't bend easily. We don't like being told when to stop caring. That makes some species nervous. The Empress's eyes darkened slightly. It should. An alert chimed softly. The map shifted, showing coalition ships crossing into Imperial space. They have begun, Corin said. Yes, the Empress replied. And they will expect surrender. She turned toward a console and placed her hand against it. The room responded instantly, lights brightening, systems awakening. I will not surrender, she said. Corin straightened. Neither will we. She looked at him sharply. We? Corin hesitated for just a moment. If you let us stand, humans will stand. The Empress studied him, searching for deception. She found none. Very well, she said. I will test this. She activated a channel, broadcasting across the ship and beyond. Prepare a secure transmission, she commanded. Target, human-controlled systems. Corin's heart began to pound. You're calling Earth? He asked. I am calling humanity, she corrected. The channel opened. Static filled the air, followed by the familiar symbol of the United Human Directorate. Faces appeared, tired and wary. This is Empress Valir of the Varelian Empire, she said. I speak regarding one of your soldiers. The human officials exchanged confused looks. Corin Hale, she continued. Left behind on Karos 9. Abandoned. Corin felt heat rise in his chest. He fought alone, the Empress said, her voice steady. He fought until he could no longer stand. I saw him. The officials were silent now. I chose not to let him die, she said, and in doing so, I learned something about your species. Corin watched the faces change. Confusion gave way to attention. Attention to disbelief. Humanity does not retreat when others fall, the Empress said. You endure. You remember. And you repay. She paused. I offer protection, she said. Not ownership, not control, an alliance of equals. The channel went quiet. At last, a human representative spoke. The Empress did not look away from Corin when she answered, because a species that stands alone when abandoned will stand with absolute loyalty when respected. Corin swallowed. The channel closed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. You have placed your empire at risk, Corin said. Yes, she replied. Why trust us? He asked again. The Empress finally turned fully toward him. Because the galaxy already fears you. I prefer to understand you. Outside the ship, the first shots of the coming battle lit the stars. Corin watched them flare and fade. He thought of every human unit that had been left behind. Every promise broken. This won't be easy, he said. The Empress allowed herself a small, sharp smile. I did not choose easy. As alarms echoed through the ship and fleets moved into position, Corin realized something important. He had been saved once on a ruined battlefield. Now, his survival had given humanity something far more powerful than rescue. It had given them a chance to be seen. The battle began without warning, but not without purpose. Across the dark space between stars, coalition fleets surged forward in tight formations. Their ships were powerful and numerous, built for fast strikes and overwhelming force. They expected fear. They expected the Varelian Empire to hesitate, to negotiate, to fall back. They were wrong. Imperial fleets moved with calm precision, spreading out instead of clustering together. Defensive lines formed and shifted like living things. Energy shields flared and settled, weapons powered up, not in panic, but in control. Corin stood on the command deck beside the Empress, watching the first exchange of fire. He felt the ship respond beneath his feet, steady and confident. "They're testing you," Corin said, probing for weakness. "We?" The Empress nodded. "Let them look." Coalition ships pushed deeper, chasing what appeared to be a gap in the Imperial lines. Their confidence grew as resistance seemed light. They moved faster, tighter, closer. Then the trap closed. Imperial vessels emerged from hidden positions, striking from angles the Coalition had not expected. Precise shots, disabled engines and weapons without destroying entire ships. Chaos rippled through the enemy formation. "They overcommitted," Corin said quietly. "Yes," the Empress replied. "As you predicted." But the battle was far from over. A new signal appeared on the tactical display. Corin leaned forward, his eyes widening. "Those are human transponders," he said. The Empress turned sharply. So quickly? Human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel along the edge of the battlefield. They were fewer in number than the Coalition or the Empire, but they arrived in tight formation, shields up, weapons ready. They did not hesitate. Human vessels moved straight into the fighting, covering Imperial flanks, intercepting Coalition fire meant for larger ships. Their maneuvers were aggressive and direct, not elegant, but effective. Corin felt something tighten in his chest. "They came," he whispered. "They remembered," the Empress said. On open channels, human commanders coordinated with Imperial officers with little delay. There were no long discussions, no arguments over rank or control. They shared data, adjusted positions, and fought. Together, Coalition forces faltered as their advantage faded. They had expected divided enemies. Instead, they faced unity they had helped create. By betrayal, on the ground of distant worlds, news spread quickly. Recordings of Corin's last stand circulated across networks. The image of one human fighting alone against machines became a symbol, not of loss, but of refusal. The Coalition's leadership panicked. They opened diplomatic channels, demanding ceasefire, claiming misunderstanding, offering apologies wrapped in empty words. The Empress ignored them. "You abandoned your allies," she said in a broadcast heard across the battlefield. "Now you face the cost." The final push was swift. Imperial and human fleets advanced together, forcing Coalition ships into retreat. Some surrendered. Others fled. None pursued too far. The message was clear. When the last Coalition ship jumped away, silence returned to the stars. On the command deck, officers relaxed for the first time since the battle began. Damage reports came in. Losses were counted. Repairs were already underway. The Empress turned to Corin. "The battle is over," she said. Corin exhaled slowly, realizing only now how tense he had been. "It doesn't feel like the end." "It is not," she agreed. "It is a beginning." Days passed. Corin remained aboard the flagship as talks began between humanity and the Empire. This time, humans were not begging for inclusion or protection. They were invited. Human representatives spoke carefully but firmly. They demanded respect, not favors. They offered loyalty, not submission. The Empress listened. She watched how humans disagreed openly yet stood together when decisions were made, how they questioned authority but followed through once trust was earned. "This is why they endure," she told her advisors. At last, the time came for a public declaration. Across the galaxy, channels opened. Civilizations watched as the Empress of the Varelian Empire stood before her people and before humanity. "Today," she said, "I name humanity an honored allied species of the Varelian Empire." Gasps echoed across countless worlds. "They are not tools," she continued. "They are not expendable. They are protectors who stand when others retreat." The image shifted to Corin, standing quietly at her side. "This human fought alone when abandoned," the Empress said. "Not for glory, not for reward, but because he believed someone had to." She raised her hand slightly toward him. "From this day forward, no human will stand alone again." On Earth, people watched in silence. Then cheers erupted. Soldiers, workers, families, many wept openly. Corin felt overwhelmed. He was no hero. He knew that. He had simply done what he thought was right. Yet somehow, that had been enough. Later, standing once more before the stars, Corin prepared to return home. His armor was repaired, his body healed, his purpose clearer than ever. The Empress joined him. "You will leave us now," she said. "For a while," Corin replied. "But not forever." "No," she agreed. "Not anymore." She studied him for a long moment. "If you had died on that battlefield, this alliance would not exist." Corin shook his head. "Someone else would have stood. Humans always do." The Empress allowed herself a rare smile. "That is why the galaxy will learn to respect you." Corin boarded the human ship waiting for him. As it pulled away, he looked back at the Imperial flagship, proud and steady against the stars. He thought of all the times humanity had been ignored, underestimated, sacrificed. Those days were ending. Because one Empress had seen a lone human refuse to fall, and because humanity, once seen, had shown the galaxy exactly who they were.